So let's do our opening invocation and we'll do our pledges. Heavenly Father, we thank you that we live in a country where we're free and able to come together and represent our citizens and represent those who voted for us, and even those that didn't vote for us, to live in our community, that we can do your business. Help us be your servants tonight. We pray that all would go on tonight would be done in an orderly and good fashion. We ask you to give us direction, clarity, that we be good stewards of the facilities we're in charge of and we oversee. And we pray these things in Christ's name. Amen. Okay. Pledge to the American flag. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Now to the Texas flag. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible. We take attendance. Marta, here.
Here.
Emily, Paul,
I'm here.
Jack,
Present.
and Brad. So we have a quorum and we're all present tonight. I'd like to also start the meeting by thanking Marta for filling in last month. I was unable to attend because of travel. And welcome Jack back from wellness. So it's nice that I have all five here tonight. So comments from the public? No? Okay. Any requests for adjustments? Okay, that's good. So minutes from the from October meeting. And I would ask that folks that were here kind of lead that discussion. We have a second or a motion to approve the minutes and then any discussion from those.
Make a motion to approve the minutes from last month.
The second.
Okay, can we have a vote? All say aye. Any abstain? All abstain? Jack, you abstaining? Voting?
Aye. What was the question, Brad?
He was.
You voted? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. The motion's carried, though. Minutes are approved. That takes us through the consent agenda. Okay, down to item 10. So Chris, you want to walk us through?
Sure. So I just have a few things to add. On page 17, you'll see that the financial data will be delivered at the MUD meetings. It is over here, so if you did not pick one up and you'd like one, I could definitely get you one.
We have them on our desk. Is this it?
Yes, ma'am. That does appear to be it. One thing to note on this is for the September financials, and basically August is year-end close. They hold August open a little bit longer. So therefore, when you look at this is not actually truly representative of September because not all the expenses were captured. Biggest one being is if you look under purchase and contract services, it shows under budget by almost 1.9 million. That's because GRP was not paid. And so if you take into consideration the fact that we did pay GRP, it just didn't make the financials, then we're not actually $2.2 million under budget. 2.7. So just FYI, we'll catch up in October and you'll see those at the October financials. Next item is on page 18. These are the projects. You'll see that we've changed the project list again, trying to make it a little bit more user-friendly, add a little bit more specific information. One of the main things being on the location, instead of just saying the MUD, trying to put a location. So if you drive around, you see something at an intersection and say, hey, what is this? You can come back here and see that's what it was. The last thing I do have is, some of y'all may have noticed this, but at the intersection of Research Forest and Grogan's Mill is a GRP waterline break. We were notified yesterday about 3:30, 4 o'clock sometime about a break over there. And so we started working on it this morning at 7 o'clock. Thought we were going to be done today fixing it, but due to basically technical reasons and trying to make sure it actually lasts longer than intended, we're going to take another couple of days to repair the pipeline. And so hoping to wrap that up, repair it by Friday, then have the line back in service by Tuesday after disinfection and back T sampling.
What's
So
that affecting?
right now that's affecting the Woodlands Water Plant 1, which is Slash Pine and Grogan's Mill, roughly, or South Mill Bend. And then Rayford Road, Mud 99, City of Oak Ridge, and Southern Montgomery County Mud. So they're not receiving surface water, but they still have their wells to produce water for their systems. So
Is that a contractor break again?
natural,
Yeah.
well, not natural, but pre-existing issues with the GRP line. There's been 5 breaks on these 2 segments of line since it was installed in about 2014.
Is this the line that runs down Research Forest the whole way?
This is actually right at the turn of Research and Grogan's.
I know where the break is, but the
Yeah.
line, is it the same line that comes all the way down Research Forest?
No, it actually necks down a little bit, but it is that same line. Yeah,
Okay.
it is.
Okay, so
Yeah.
when you talk about previous breaks, that includes the ones that are on Research
Yes.
Forest?
Yes, sir. There's 2 segments, what we call W1A and no, W2A and W2B. Those 2 segments have had those 5 breaks, the biggest and most expensive ones. So
When you say pre-existing issues, what does that mean?
contractor that installed it appears they bent pipe instead of using fittings is what it appears. That's what the lawsuits were about 4 or 5 years ago. So
So is there going to be any correction, or is it just, we may just keep seeing breaks?
So we've gone through and identified, you may just keep seeing breaks is the short answer to it, but we've gone through and identified where all the fittings should have been. And so far, everywhere there's been a fitting is when there's been a break at.
Everywhere there should be a fitting, or
Yeah.
every,
Should
Where
be a
the-
fitting.
okay.
Because what they did is PVC, instead of actually, it has some flexibility. Instead of putting in a fitting and making like a 12 or, 22.5 degree bend to get the pipe to kind of move, they just bent the pipe. And so you have 2 pieces of pipe and they took the one in the middle and bent it and put it into the other pieces.
so if we know that this is the case, is there any preventative maintenance that we can do ahead of the breaks? To,
Yeah. And the only way to actually fix it is go into all those areas where there should be fittings and then replace it correctly. So
so is that something that's,
it's being discussed at this time. Previous management said basically wait for the break to occur because you don't know, they may or may not break. It may be 5 years, 10 years, 50 years. It may never happen. And so just wait for them to occur. So now it's back on the table, new management. And so we're talking about to see what his thoughts are
Can you share the quantity with the group?
of,
Bins that have been broken and bins that are remaining to break.
yeah, I can definitely get a hard, fast number for you, but we've had 5 that are broken and I think there's 15 to 20 remaining.
Yeah, this will be shared in other meetings. That's what I was looking for. Yeah.
So
So 15, 20. So it's not like there's 200 of these. There's not 2
Right.
of them.
you got it.
It's-
Yeah.
Okay.
But
manageable?
there's a fair amount of water coming out when these things break though too.
Right.
Which water losses?
Oh, shoot, I'd have to go. It ran for a 30-inch for an hour. Yeah,
Bunch.
it's a bunch.
So more than our 4%.
That's a good technical answer there.
Yeah, but the good thing is this is on GRP's line. So it's not, against the Woodlands Division's water loss. It goes against GRP's, which is literally less than 1%. But it's still loss of water and it's still, water that should have been sold. So, but that's part of the delay this time is we had a break here, we had a break here, and in between we measured it off. There's 60 foot in between. And so this pipe was stressed and this pipe was stressed. And so we know that pipe in the middle is stressed or has been stressed. And so rather than replacing this piece and leaving the stress piece to break later, we're going to go ahead and replace the entire piece. To do that takes a couple more days, but mitigates the break in the future.
What does GRP stand for?
For groundwater reduction plan.
Okay.
Got my sidekick.
Yeah, a question I know I just got to jump on it.
Hey, go for it. That's all I have unless you have any other questions.
Could you comment on the well levels?
Sure. So these,
First of all, I don't,
yeah.
are new members, y'all seen these or these? Do you need an overview of what they are?
This is the second time I've seen these
Okay.
come through.
Yeah, I thought we had seen them earlier, so 26 through
Jack, I
27.
don't think Jack has seen them before.
Yeah,
This is
okay.
the first time.
So you might do a scene set, but then also what's the takeaway from these?
Okay. So what you're looking at on 26 and 27, these are both Evangeline aquifer levels. One's going to go from 1990 to basically now 2024. Then we've done a zoomed in version on page 27 from 2010 to 2024. Gives you obviously a zoomed in approach. 28 and 29 is the same type of graphs, just different data because they're different aquifer, being the Jasper. And so I'm going to flip back and forth and kind of explain just briefly little things. So the Evangeline is where 15% of your groundwater comes from. These wells typically cannot be lowered. I think out of about 17 wells, maybe 2 can be lowered. And if they can be lowered, then they're going to be lowered about maybe 50 foot. Meaning once these aquifers reach the bottom of that well, the well goes dry, we have to pull it. You can no longer use it for groundwater. And so that's why only 15% comes from there. We want to try to preserve them as long as we can. So we watch these at least twice a year. The Jasper has, and Paul could definitely go into a lot more information than I could on the high level. The Jasper is a lot thicker of an aquifer, and it's all one basic aquifer, but the upper portion of it has better water quality than the lower Jasper. And so all of our wells are in the upper Jasper portion. So you can drop them quite a bit, but the more you drop them, the worse your water quality gets. So then you got to do treatment and everything else. So we're watching these because some of the bigger wells you can drop to maybe 300 foot. And so every time we do a rehab, we look at the Jasper well and say, okay, do we need to drop it? Over the next 10 to 15 years, do we think this aquifer is going to drop 50 foot? And do we need to drop this pump 100 foot just to account for that? And so we use these to track that. So we started presenting these a number of years ago. And I'll just focus on page 28 for now, since it's the one that I have up. Jasper is the other 85% of your aquifer groundwater usage is where we pull it from. What I pay attention to is you can see right around 2015 timeframe, you can start to see where the aquifer comes back up, it rebounds. That's when GRP came online. So when GRP came online, you see a rebound. Right before that, you can see where you had right around the lowest part of some of these wells where they're at their lowest, right? If you look at that point, then you go over to 2024, you're almost at the same point, meaning the wells have dropped down in some cases to the same level.
ERP regulation went out of effect right about the time that starts going back down again.
You got it right around 2020.
But I don't know if it was clear that what this is representing is the static water level downhole in the well. So where that water sits when it's not pumping. Now granted, when it starts pumping, it goes down a little bit during pump, and then when it stops, it'll bounce back up. But that's the static water level. That's the thing we really watch, because across the entire county and across the whole watershed of the aquifers, you want to know where that is, because once that level gets too low below the well or in the well, well's obsolete. You can't use it again. You can't drill it deeper. You'd have to abandon it and start over drilling a well deeper. It's your only alternative once these aquifers get depleted too much.
Which one do we use?
You use both of them, but mostly the Jasper.
Wait, is it my understanding that the Woodlands is kind of over the Jasper? Are we?
Yeah, the entire
already-
county
yeah.
is. Yeah, it's
I just remember seeing a map of something, and then there's like red where the Woodlands is, and it's just more about subsidence.
right.
And that portion of subsidence is like right in the area where we are. And I guess when I look at this and I see these numbers dip over the years, and us using 85% of that for groundwater,
Mhm.
Are there other options that we consider?
Surface.
85% of
Of groundwater pool, that's what I.
of the groundwater, which you're using 50%
We use
groundwater.
50.
So it's 85%,
Correct.
50% is
When
coming.
he was
from
talking
the-
earlier,
Yeah.
he said that they're pulling 85% of the groundwater from the Jasper and
Correct, from
15%.
Jasper.
And 15% from the Evangeline.
And so rough numbers, it's about 3 billion gallons a year of groundwater is what we use, and it's 85% of that 3 billion is from the Jasper. So still quite a
But the
bit.
Jasper continues on down into Harris County. I mean, it's.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Is the Woodlands the greatest user or percentage user of surface water?
It is.
Yeah.
Yes.
and that data is in the statement in the GRP report. Okay. Yeah, but I mean,
Yeah.
the takeaway is we're at 50%, which has slowed the move, but because we're not, I mean, the rest of the county is still increasing groundwater extraction.
Nobody's
So-
pumping surface water. But us.
And the opposite doesn't know where the county line is. It doesn't care where.
So we're doing we're helping
Right.
by going up to 50%. As our total consumption goes up, we also draw a little bit more.
Yeah, I was thinking, sometimes we say, well, how come we're getting all that surface water? Why aren't they coming back? It's all the total demand. 50% of a bunch is more than 50% of less. So as our demand overall increases, even though it's 50%, it's still a lot more groundwater. But I think it seemed like 27 and 29, where it's not really, I guess it's barely perceptible, but you can also see that with that great decline in demand, you can see these colored lines going up.
Yeah.
I mean, we're working on it.
But as a percentage of users of the aquifers, we are small compared to Conroe, Magnolia, and all the places that close, correct?
Woodlands is still one of the top groundwater producers in the county. Conroe is definitely right on the heels of the Woodlands, especially because their surface water usage is low. I think, trying to remember,
31, page 31 has the data.
Yes.
Okay.
Conroe,
Yeah, it has data for Conroe, surface and groundwater.
yeah, because they've asked, Conroe's using about 11 million gallons a day of groundwater, and they want 5.3 of surface water. So they're at 16.3. Woodlands total is about 17, 18 million gallons a day.
adding 4 to 6 wells is not gonna help them
No,
get off of groundwater.
no.
They may surpass us. They're drilling at least 4 new wells.
Well, the other thing that's kind of happening around the county is, the Woodlands overall is mostly developed. We're not growing exponentially
Yeah.
anymore. But North, West, and East County in particular is growing significantly. And so you're gonna start that red blob that you're talking about, that's starting to move in some cases. I mean, Woodlands and North Harris County, because that's where a large majority of the development in Houston was in the 80s, 90s, and 2000s. So that's a big, because even south of the creek, a lot of development in northern Harris County. But now you're starting to see those red dots, as far as subsidence or of aquifer depletion. You're starting to see them in northern Montgomery County, around Conroe, and then East County as well. And it'll only get worse as that continues to occur, unless there's some kind of additional regulation on it, which currently there isn't.
Thanks, Chris. I just wanted the group to understand the data we have and the impact and the fact that we don't necessarily control our own destiny. It's got to be a
But how can we affect the policy makings and making people?
We have
know?
to have a special meeting. to
There
figure
is
it out.
no.
The alternative is for everybody to do it and have regulations that control it.
But there is one seat on the Lone Star board that's designated for the Woodlands in its entirety. So Woodlands residents vote
That's
to
true.
seat that person. So it's a small thing, but it is a thing. So.
Okay, any other questions for Chris on the SJRA update? Okay, thanks, Chris.
Thank you.
Eric, are you going to talk about the drainage improvement projects?
You bet. So on Bear Panther Drainage Project, as we talked about the last couple months, the latest engineer's estimate was greater than the funds that were available. So essentially, the direction was to go back to the drawing board essentially on the modeling. And so we had a stakeholder meeting a few weeks ago where it was essentially unanimous that amongst stakeholders, the 6 MUDs involved, you being one, that they gave direction to the engineer to essentially run a couple different scenarios at the model that they've developed over the last year and a half. And that would just be to look at a different variation of improvements, which is kind of assortment of cleaning out bear and panther branches, and then also the current model that was run, and the scenario that was run was cleaning out bear and panther and then put detention ponds at the northeast corner of Gosling and Research Forest. The additional two scenarios that will be run, well, one is to just do a clean out of the branches, and the other one was to do a clean out, and then instead of Gosling detention, essentially kind of clean out the area and possibly provide some detention south of that area as well. So I think it was agreed upon to instruct the engineer to do those two options, not to exceed $20,000. And the estimate of completion for some answers would be by Thanksgiving. Haven't seen them yet, but as soon as I do, what we'll likely do is send that information out to the stakeholders and then get another meeting set up so that we can get everybody in the room to talk about where to go from here.
You know, I've been pretty quiet during the meetings, but this is for one big rain event, correct? The intent is?
The intent was, the model was originally created off of the Tax Day, Memorial Day storms.
Yeah.
I think it was the Tax Day storm.
And so cleaning out the ditches and the streams through there, I mean, Greenbelt's right across the street from me. I mean, the water comes up all the way across, and sometimes it's 100 yards across going down. I'm not sure how anything other than the retention ponds really is going to address this issue.
It's just a matter of time and concentration of the water, getting it out of the area faster. And if you get it out faster, you can't put it on someone below you faster. So then you would have to obviously detain it. So that's why the detention ponds come in. The other alternative that I think it was option one that they were looking at was just doing a clean out of the ditches and see what effects that may have downstream. Number one, does it have adverse effects downstream? But then does it even help the area in question? So I think that's going to be a big question mark, you know, coming out of it. Well, ideally that the new run will answer that
I
question.
mean, I'm skeptical. Yeah. Because I walk my dogs back there all the time, and there are places where it's dammed up. I mean,
Oh.
there's definitely a value to cleaning it out.
Mhm.
When the big storms, doesn't matter. It just comes up and it just goes all the way across.
And I think in all the discussions and options that we needed to keep in mind that we don't want to just fix where it's a problem and move it downstream to somebody else, right? Just
Sure.
make it further down by Gosling or something and have that area flood instead.
That will be inherent in any solution.
Any solution has to be.
Absolutely, yeah, we won't be able to do that. So more to come, but that's kind of the latest so far.
So our next meeting, we might have another update. Okay.
And hopefully, we can maybe have a trustee meeting, or I mean, a stakeholder meeting sometime, you know.
And you guys are representing us and Doing good?
We were both there last time. I think we've made all the meetings.
good, appreciate that.
There's been great discussion amongst all the stakeholders, a very collaborative effort on everybody's part.
Okay, move on to item 12. So I think Eric, you're up on this one again. The reclamation decision matrix.
Okay.
Yeah.
You've seen how this works now, doing it 10 times. You're doing the same thing, right? You're starting to see it. In your packet, there's a number of documents. They look like this, and this. And so, excuse me on my pages, what is it?
40 through,
Okay. So if you recall, the trustees authorized the third-party consultant Carollo through SRA to evaluate the 4 options on wastewater treatment plant number 1. As that's going on, that evaluation will be done sometime next year. The additional discussion was to develop some sort of decision matrix to assist with how to decide once that evaluation is done, to maybe give some clarity. So the Carollo was asked to provide what's called a decision matrix to build some criteria and sub-criteria around what would be the parameters that a decision might be made on. And so they developed the 2 pages with blue. There's 7 criteria. Operability, treatment effectiveness, established technology, constructability, footprint, flexibility, community acceptability, and life cycle cost. And so the consultant for all engineers attended the trustee meeting last week and presented the PowerPoint presentation, which is also available there for you to see. There was some questions more so related around the definitions and understanding the definitions of the sub-criteria. The trustees were given till the end of the month to provide their questions and comments on the criteria and sub-criteria definitions. The ask of the MUDs will be to fill out this form, which is, they call it the paired comparison worksheet. So the intention of this is to gauge each MUD's feelings towards what's more important for you. And so if you'll see on here, it goes, and essentially it takes all these criteria, 1 through 7, and it compares them. And it kind of does a different comparison between 1 and 2, 1 and 3, 1 and 4, 2 and 5, et cetera. It kind of goes through all of them. And so it's really asking, of those 2 things, which one's more important to you? And so that information will then get plugged into this decision matrix software that Corello uses, and eventually utilizing this criteria, your preferences, and then this criteria and sub-criteria as well. And then it will help develop some metrics and objective output towards, helping the MUDs and trustees make some decisions. What I've mentioned to the MUDs thus far is there's probably a number of different ways that you could tackle this. What we're asking for by January is to have one of these filled out for each MUD. And I think what several of the MUDs have done is say, well, if each of the directors want to tackle doing it themselves, then they can send it to me. I'll compile it into one, and then we'll present that to Corello in January. Or you can elect someone to take a crack at it and then somehow distribute it back and forth, but that would have to be done at a meeting. So some of the MUDs are electing not to have December meetings. So what they've done is say, let's just have all directors fill one out, and then we'll compile it. So that's a real quick, brief summary synopsis of the presentation.
You might refer to slide 11 in the PowerPoint, and that shows how the comparative weighting is used to create a weighting that goes into the final model for each of the criteria. So when you do the comparison, you're required to use only whole numbers.
What page are you looking at?
Number 11.
Oh, separate. You got it. It's underneath. Thank you.
So my recommendation is we either have a couple people do it, and then we share it at the next meeting, or we come the next meeting and have an active working session to align on the numbers. If we just turn them in to Eric and then he has to compile them, it'll be, could be an unknown outcome.
I think it would be best if we collaborated and had a discussion on it.
I would like that too.
So are we willing to have a December meeting and have that part of our meeting topic?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Can we have a working meeting?
Of course, yeah, absolutely. Sure.
So the ask would be for you guys then to take this as a draft, come back in our December meeting, and then we can go through as a group and generate one final copy. We'll turn it into Eric.
And while you're doing that, while you're contemplating that, I would also ask as you evaluate these criteria and sub-criteria, if you have any questions, send them to me.
Okay.
That way you have an opportunity to speak your mind on that, and then I can share those with Corella.
And then we'll have all those answers back before we have our time to meet. So we can, for instance, life cycle of 50 years and just reading some of that over, I think it could be something that could bring a lot of questions to people's minds about, well, not everything is going to break it like at, 50 years. So,
Yeah, sure.
just so we're really clear on what that means. So we're going in thinking, well, that's questionable.
I will compile whatever comments I receive and send them. So that'll give the consultant, I think, a couple weeks prior to any December board meetings to hopefully update that.
So there are.
So let me review the work process. Look at the sub-criteria and the criteria. That's the blue one. Okay. You have to understand what these mean so you know how to weigh them. And then provide feedback to Eric on the sub-criteria, either on the wording or the weighting. And I can tell you, it's just some examples that came out of the trustee meeting, like on 1E, they combined safe accessibility and site security into one item. Well, those aren't necessarily related, as opposed to 1C, which is peak flow management. That's a single criteria. It's pretty easy. Again, 1A is, operational flexibility, complexity, and staffing requirement. Well, those are what may be good in one area, may be the opposite in the other area. So the feedback was we ought to have only like items on a single line. Okay.
I think my other question is, we have 7 different criteria groups. Is each of this numbers, 4 or 5, being weighted equally amongst themselves?
Yeah,
So
they're
that's
all,
the
they're all
ideal.
equal, except this will create the balance.
Yeah. So you take those
Your
scorecards.
preferences will dictate that.
So like this community acceptability, the aesthetics will not be more important than the constructability.
It could be.
It depends on if you choose that it is.
Okay,
So that's how you do but you have to understand what these mean. And if you got questions on the subcategories, send them to Eric. And if you've got comments on the weighting, so like one of the ones that you mentioned on last week, 4D, site development, does alternative fit the existing layout? 20%. Well, that could be like a digital on off. If it doesn't fit, then it's not a feasible solution. Okay, so saying it doesn't fit, but I'm only going to weigh it 20% doesn't make a lot of sense. And the consultant said, well, we're not really saying it doesn't fit. We're saying how much effort does it take to get it to fit? Okay, so you've got to be a little careful on what do you mean by this? Okay, because something that doesn't fit. So it's not a feasible solution. It shouldn't be. So that's no longer an option. Okay, so both the weighings and the wordings need to be reviewed and feedback given to Eric. Once we understand the 7 key criteria, then we compare them to generate relative weightings. Okay. And you'll send us an update of the subcategories based upon,
I would presume they'd be in that second week roughly of December.
yeah, so we should have them before we meet. Okay.
Yeah, December 2nd is a Monday. So if we have any comments back on the blue by the end of this month, I can get them to Corella, and then ideally they get us a revised version of that so that you can start hitting the comparison.
And your work process is only the Woodlands Muds are providing relative weights.
Woodlands Muds will have each will have one, and the next area will have one, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't have one personally. So it'll be 10 from the Muds and then next area.
And they'll be weighted equally.
Yeah, each of the
Each of the 11.
entries, correct. Yeah, depending on however the mud goes. Correct.
So we have homework and we have a December meeting.
So Brad, did I hear you? I'm trying to process this. You said something about if it doesn't fit, it doesn't fit. Talking about that one, that one particular example. Does that, so does Corella just throw that whole thing out?
Well,
You know what I mean? Because it automatically will sequence its way out if it doesn't, you know what I mean? Like,
well, so
We
their
wanna make
feedback
sure
to
that
you
it-
was, well, we don't really mean it doesn't fit.
Could be
What we
reworded.
really mean is how much work does it mean to make it fit? So,
Much money.
just
Uh,
as long as we're not like, oh, we'll just scoot that one out.
so,
Like,
so,
we do want to make sure it, you know what I'm saying?
yeah, so the feedback
So
that,
it's equal.
Hugh had was, well, that's not what you say, write what you mean, okay? And because otherwise, if you take that as it's written, it would say, rather than a 20% weighting, it would be 100% weighting, because that's the only important factor. If it doesn't fit, it doesn't fit, okay? I think
It
that's,
seemed like the comments from the trustees were well received by the consultant.
Oh, yeah.
I think that she was very open to the comments, and I think their intention is to try to build this so the MUDs have the opportunity to weigh out, their preferences, and that this will help guide a decision in the end. So objectively. Mhm.
another example was 3A. The number of installations in the US and Texas are similar capacity. And the comment made was, well, over what time period? Are you going to look at what was built 50 years ago? Is that as relevant as what was built 10 years ago? So maybe you want to time band this and say, okay, what are the most, what's the highest count over, as technology has changed, are you going to include things that were 75 years old, or are you only going to include things that have been built in the last 20 years? Okay.
Compared to the traditional.
So.
Hmm.
Okay. Brian, question for you.
Yes, sir.
For item 13, can I do a handoff to Marta for part of this and then come back in? Okay. So,
Do we have to suspend the meeting?
No.
No, just the presiding officer asked for you to handle item number 13.
Which you'll quickly hand to me, I think. I don't know, but.
Item 13 is consider and direct trustee to vote on appointment of vacant WWA seat on the SJRA GRP Review Committee. So I think we have two candidates up. Eric, do you want to?
Eric, give some background.
Let me give, if you might, if I could. So there is a GRP advisory committee that gives recommendations to the SJRA board of directors, who then approves things such as the budget and
Contract consultants.
yeah. So they don't make any decisions, but they give recommendations to the SJRA board. WWA has a seat on that committee. I believe there's 6 individuals, the committee is 6. A number of different municipalities and areas of the region are involved. WWA has a seat on it. Mike Mooney, the deputy general manager of WWA, has sat in that seat since its inception from the GRP. He turned in his resignation to that seat at their last meeting. It was not unforeseen. Obviously, he's announced his retirement from WWA, so we knew it was coming at some point. And so there is an open seat on that committee. So that seat needs to be voted on by the trustees to appoint a individual to that position. At the trustee meeting last week, the trustees voted to push the discussion down to the MUDs to get their feedback, the director's feedback, and give guidance to their trustee to come back to the trustees at a future meeting, December likely, and make that recommendation of appointment. So at that time, I had made a recommendation to appoint Kim Wright, our new deputy general manager, and then Brad had expressed interest as well as interest in the seat as well. So we put it on the agenda for all the MUDs. such that the two could present their themselves to the MUDs. And in your packet, there are bios from both Brad and Kim. And so if you've read those, you can read those. And then from there, you can ask to hear a little bit more from them, or some of the MUDs have done that, but it's up to you at that point. So, and then you'll need to direct your trustee on how to vote.
Can you tell us a little bit more about the workings of the GRP review committee?
What do you mean?
What are they responsible for?
Oh, that's what I had just mentioned.
Oh, okay.
They approve the budget. They contemplate, I think right now, lately, they've contemplated the flow through the plant, I think, contracts, consultants, perhaps.
New customers, adjusting surface water blend ratios. Pretty much anything that deals with GRP is what this review committee advises on.
So they would advise the SJ board on how to act upon these contracts and other decisions.
So they're an oversight group for the surface water plant and the pipeline and the associated distribution around the county.
And right now, the member makeup is mostly people from the industry, community members.
No, there's 5 other specific either municipalities or regions of the GRP that are represented. So MUDs east of 45, Lone Star. You're going to be better at this than I.
Yeah, MUDs east of
Oak
45,
Ridge.
west of 45, City of Conroe, Woodlands Water, Lone Star, and then other cities besides the City of Conroe.
It's almost the makeup of the original Lone Star Board.
Pretty much, just take out the county
East and
commissioner.
west.
Yeah.
Other cities, Conroe, this one.
So then there are the people who fill the seats. You have a director of public works. You have a council member for Conroe. You have a soon to be council member for a MUD, or not a council member, board member for a MUD east of 45. A private developer and a water general manager, water system general manager.
East of 45 is currently a elected official, all right?
East of 45 is, oh yeah, Rick Moffitt is a council member for Conroe. And then, I'm not Conroe, Oak Ridge.
Oak Ridge North.
Yeah, that's right.
You ready to hear from the candidates? Kim, you're going to go first. Thank you.
Right, so hopefully you guys had an opportunity to read my summary in your package. So I just wanted to offer a little bit more about me and a little bit more about my philosophy on the GRP. As we know, the GRP was planned and the surface water treatment plant was constructed as a solution for large volume groundwater users to achieve compliance with local rules and regs that were in place. Although there are currently no rules and regulations in place, the existing GRP contract signed by converted and non-converted participants remains in place. There is a responsibility of the GRP review committee members to advise in a manner that considers the needs that exist for today and in the future, along with consideration of the costs associated with meeting those needs. As a representative of the GRP committee, I recognize the need to make available and provide the needed resources such as affordable, clean drinking water and other utilities for this ever-growing area, while also making decisions that protect our aquifers today and also for in the future. There may be limitations with the existing GRP contract with adding new participants currently, and also with no rules and regulations currently in place to drive the need or demand for surface water. However, remaining vigilant to think outside the box, collaboratively and cohesively to promote efficiency and continuous increased utilization of the surface water treatment plant needs to occur. Although I'm not an engineer, my knowledge, background, and experience is diverse. I am technically minded. You do not have to be an engineer to understand projects, budgets, asset management, operations, and/or maintenance. One must, however, be engaged in the details when required and supported by knowledgeable resources and staff. Relationships and communication are key to making this possible. My ability to serve on the GRP review committee should not be discounted due to the perception that there may be a lack of technical and/or engineering experience. It is much, much more than that. I have successfully planned for and managed multi-million-dollar assets, budgets, and capital projects in multiple roles. I have collaborated significantly to achieve operational successes and to meet defined goals. This has been possible by not knowing all the answers, but through my understanding and experiences, collaboration, and accurate data gathering to make recommendations and informed decisions. I could not have done it without diversified and collaborative teams that have included leadership, engineers, technical staff, administrative, maintenance and operations staff, legal, engineers, directors, and committee members. I am a Woodlands Water employee. I'm neutral. I'm not an elected official. My background in this industry and working in multiple disciplines reflect my ability and my desire to work with the public and to support our community. I am the right person to represent the Woodlands Muds and would be honored to do so. I ask for your support, I ask for your vote, and I ask for a recommendation for your trustee to appoint me to this position. And then lastly, but not least, I just want to tell you guys, I'm excited to be here to work and support Eric, the Woodlands Water team, and the board members and trustees however I can. So I appreciate the opportunity to be here and I appreciate the consideration. So.
Okay, thank you
We
so
get a
much.
chance to question of it.
Yes, please, go ahead. The candidate.
Oh, candidate, not a witness.
Remember, you were
Did
once
you,
a candidate.
Work with Ron Kelling or for Ron?
I
And then Mr. Smith, who was basically the GRP guy.
sure did. Yeah, actually, Ron kind of, I want to say mentor, but he kind of was, encouraged me, because he was an engineer. I wasn't an engineer. And
Right.
so my opportunity that I had in the Highlands, was inspired and encouraged by Mr. Kelly. Yeah, absolutely. And then I worked with, Mark Smith at the GRP as they were transitioning from construction to operations. I went in to help when they were writing their policies, procedures, when they were staffing up, when we were trying to find operators to run the facility. And so I was very engaged in that whole effort. So, yeah.
So Mark Smith was basically the head of the GRP division, basically.
But
An enviable job.
did
It was a tough job for a long time.
very,
And the Highlands you mentioned is the operation in Lake Houston.
yes, sir. Yes.
Water.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's JRA's water.
Yeah, so we pumped anywhere from 60 to 80 MGD a day to Exxon, Chevron, and all the other industrial customers in that area. So I work closely with Exxon and Chevron, just coordinating efforts and municipalities down in that area. And we had a pretty robust capital improvement plan when I was leaving. We were working toward that. I actually sat down with Jace and Ron, and we had talked about looking at making the Lake Houston pump station where we could operate it remotely using SCADA. And so we were looking, because we had always had an operator on staff 24/7 there, and he was getting ready to retire. So lots of great projects down there. So.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
I'm curious about your role as general manager with Southern Montgomery County Municipal Utility District. You started that in 2020?
Yes, yeah, it was actually when COVID, about the time COVID started. So, yeah, so And I left SJRA. I was on the raw water side of things, and I was getting back into the utility side as the general manager, and that was in 2020.
Okay, so were you there and then you came here? Or, okay, so you've been
Yeah.
there the whole time. I came across an article about Grace Church. Have you seen that? A whole thing about
Yes.
like there's financials and a
Yeah.
lawsuit?
There's an ongoing lawsuit. I prefer not to get into that, since I'm not there anymore. But yeah, there is unfortunately an ongoing lawsuit, and it has to do with a non-taxable entity tap fee. That was charged and paid by the church. But yeah, so and those tap fee, the non-taxable entity tap fees, that is a common tap fee charged and paid by non-taxable entities in the industry to get those connections and to have access to those utilities. So, yeah.
You've been through some stuff with.
Oh, yes, ma'am. Yeah.
I
Oh,
appreciate
yeah, no, absolutely.
sharing that.
Mhm.
Thanks, Rob.
Any other questions? No? Thank you so
No,
much.
you're welcome.
Brad, you're up.
Okay. And was this number 5?
I know, right?
5 more to go? Okay. So you guys know me, so I won't waste time with introductions. You might ask, why am I here? I'm here because my continued engagement with water. I believe very firmly that GRP and the increased use of surface water is a key to the growth in Montgomery County and sustainment of good water for the woodlands. I became aware of the opening for the GRP board a couple weeks ago. Talked to some folks and put my name in the hat to run. I was nominated at the trustee board by 2 other trustees to seek this position. Trustees elected not to make a decision last week and sent it back to the board, to the MUDs, and that's why we're here tonight. What do I bring? Bring 40+ years of technical leadership in the hydrocarbon processing. Retired in 2021 as a senior technical executive at ExxonMobil, involved in all sorts of financial analysis, technical analysis. I guess I would highlight a couple things about what we're trying to do tonight. One is we're not looking for an administrator for GRP. We're looking for an advisory board. And I think for those of us that are concerned about subsidence and the growth in the county, we're looking for somebody to change direction in GRP. GRP has been stuck with constant flow rate of about half utilization of that plant for a number of years. We're in a county where, as we talked earlier, Conroe's getting ready to drill 4 more wells. We've got Magnolia saying they can't expand because they don't have any water. We've got a broken system inside the county. GRP is part of that problem. It needs to be changed. The status quo has gone on long enough. When challenged with why don't we produce more water, there's always an excuse, as opposed to saying, well, this is a situation. How do we change the situation? What are the constraints? What are the limitations? How do we go forward? Status quo, powers that be have been in power for a long time, have chosen not to deal with the problem. It's time to bring somebody on board that will work with other people that want change to make a change so we can bring that plant throughput up. We can add more surface water to the county, and we can begin to continue to address this issue. So if my technical background is outstanding, have to answer these questions. I would like your consideration and support, the guide to trustee, to go back to the trustees and support me as the WWA representative to the GRP. One question that's come up is working with Eric. I'll share you, I'm not doing this for MUD 7. I don't know whether that bothers you, but some of the other MUDs were like, well, you're owned and bought by MUD 7. How can you possibly represent
Yes.
WWA? I think that's kind of absurd. I'm doing this as a trustee representing all of WWA. I'm committed to keeping Eric on board and having regular communication to him, updating the trustees. And there was a question this morning about would I come back and update the MUDs on GRP? I don't think Mike did that in the past. It was included in the trustee update or the GM update. I'm happy to do that. One thing I would point out, Mike was a PE. So that's the type of position we're trying to fill. So I'm happy to answer any questions and we've asked for your support tonight.
Just to clarify, PE is a professional engineer.
Professional engineer, yes. So I was in the chemical engineering discipline, not civil. I remained active until I retired, and then after I retired, I went inactive. So
I have a question, if I could, about the being broken, I guess. What would you do? Because I understand now that when one gets a permit for 9 million or more, or 10 million or 20 million, that they don't need a GRP anymore
from a groundwater sample.
from Lone Star.
Yeah.
What you gonna do about that?
You got to get the community alignment behind that we have a problem and we need to solve that problem. Okay?
I know,
When the original I wasn't here, when it was originally instituted, it relied upon legislative effort.
right?
It was dictated to the community. That didn't sit so well with the community. So they forced something on the community that wasn't received, wasn't well understood. We still have people saying, why am I paying the GRP fee and I don't have any surface water coming to my house? There's a tremendous lack of understanding across the community about what GRP is and what it does. I understand there's severe limitations right now, but those limitations can be addressed. My concern is that I don't think people are working to address that. I think people are happy with the status quo. Okay?
Yeah.
And I want to change the status quo. I think it's imperative we change the status quo. Because if not, we'll be here 5 years from now and those charts won't look like they look today. They'll look even worse. And we'll be taking wells out of service. And Conroe will be building more wells. Okay? That's the wrong thing to do. I think we got a strong science base to communicate to the community what's right.
Seems like you need to run for Lone Star Board.
Mm.
Do a lot more damage there
Thing at a time.
in a good way.
Any other questions for Fred?
I had some questions about the general process, but I don't need to have you stand up there. And if I could do that, just about the
Thank you.
process of how we got here, I think. 'Cause this was new to me, but apparently it's that the choice to have you nominated to be the person to represent, it came from a group of 10, right? And there was is there a reason it was limited to that?
I think anybody that was aware of the opening wanted to be nominated.
Well, I wasn't aware of it. I would have thought about it since I was at Lone Star during the 5 years that we codified the JRP and came up with it, struggled with it. I was there for 2 years while the extra year was given for contract negotiation between San Jacinto River Authority and all those members. Finally got it signed. And then I was there for 2.5 years of the initial conversion and all the enforcement issues that we had to face during it. So I had some experience.
Mhm.
And I said, perhaps I would have run if I had thought about or knew about it. Secondly, I think Mike has done a good job during the last, how many years he was on it. And I guess I have a problem. You've mentioned in your plan to run, and hopefully you'll serve for 20 years on the mud board. But if you don't, and somehow you were defeated in the next election, we've got that chain stopped.
No, that's not true.
You're
So
gonna take somebody with you to,
So you serve at the pleasure of the trustees, and you do not have to be a director to serve. Okay,
that's even more enlightening.
right? Ryan, that's true.
Well, I don't know. I have to go back and look. I was fixing to ask Chris. I don't think you can basically rescind or retract somebody
Right.
who's been appointed. Once they're appointed, it's for that term unless they step back, correct?
Correct, entirely. So it's not at the pleasure of the trustees. It's at your own pleasure once you're appointed.
And what
Yeah.
is the term on the?
Until, is it January 27?
Yeah, they're 4-year terms apiece.
Is it an elected position or?
No, it's appointed by the trustees.
Yeah, but I mean, in January 2027, trustees have to appoint somebody new. I can be appointed regardless of whether I'm a trustee or not, or a board member.
Or about director?
And I would hope then that you would be willing to continue that role as long as Kim Wright works here.
But she worked 4 years at her last job.
I know,
Okay, so, yeah, I'll commit to 4 years.
I don't know what her plans are. I'm just saying that I'm assuming that she wants to be here and continue to be here as long as she can. And that, again, it's back to an employee that represents all 10 MUDs and has to answer to all 10 MUDs versus a director who I'm sure you're capable of doing. That's where I have to put all my marbles. You're gonna go do this and fix that. And I don't know exactly how it works. You come back and report to us what you did, what you're gonna do.
I think the reporting would be similar to what Mike did. If there was anything significant, it'd be communicated to the trustees.
Yeah,
Included in the
we're gonna
GM
be
report?
taking a little bit more proactive approach. That's in my plan, regardless of who the trustees choose. We'll have a more transparent, more proactive approach to reporting back to the trustees and to the boards.
I mean, it's not identical, but it's comparable to Arthur's role for Region H. Okay, so he represents us and he reports back to the trustees on a regular basis.
Yeah, and he does a good job of it, but he's also, his biggest job, I think, there is coming up with a plan to find water over the next 50 years. Every 5 years, they do a new
Mhm.
plan about this, how much we got, how much we need, and how much are we short. So I mean, it affects all of us, and I wish we would all go attend those meetings, but it's not quite as immediate as a GRP and trying to get these wells back up to level. So I won't argue that. I mean, I'm just asking the question. I think that it's a little disappointing to me that the committee
Well,
of 10,
I remember hearing Eric when Mike was resigning, that he's gonna have to be replaced and it was open to anybody.
yeah,
So,
yeah, but I didn't know no application period or a period of going, it was not gonna go have 10 people anoint somebody and say, that's our guy.
Yeah, it has been brought up by another MUD that, to be transparent, that other members could have the opportunity to be, to stand up and throw their name in. Since it came about for the very first time at the trustee meeting last week.
Is there a process for nominations and?
There hasn't been. That was requested as well, because this has really essentially never been done since the inception, other than reappointing the individual that's been in Mike, who's been in the position every 4 years. So I think that started in 2015 or 2016.
Let me just,
2012.
so there was, the process was, it was on the trustee agenda, public agenda. There was a discussion at the trustee meeting. It was open for nominations. There was nominations taken. And then rather than have a vote, the trustees directed to take it back to the MUDs.
I just,
So I mean, there is a process. I mean, this wasn't done in a smoke-filled room in the dark.
no, but there was not advance notice given that they were looking for nominations, nor was there come to the trustee meeting, present yourself as a candidate, and then we'll decide from there. It was more or less, because I know that you
I
may,
mean, it was public information that Mike's position was vacant.
yes.
It was on the agenda for the trustee meeting.
Correct.
Okay.
and Brad saw it.
It wasn't on our-
He's like, hey,
And it was explained that the 9 people in the room were gonna make the decision.
which is what it's been for the last 10 years.
I don't think this is personal. I think overall, I would like to see a process where there's public request for nominations and that there's a certain period of time that people
Well-
can put their name for it, et cetera, and then vote.
Let me say, despite my stressing my experience, I do not want the job. I don't want to do that again. I said, you're a capable man, you're incredible credentials, et cetera, about at ExxonMobil and analytical abilities. It's nice, a chemical engineer. But it's, to me, it's more of a, as you did get into, it's more about the fact that it's an administrative type job. It's an oversight with a whole lot of politics involved, kind of at the end as well. So that's what it's gonna be. And I don't want to go any farther than to say that I believe that it probably should be an employee of this water association.
So are we ready to
To go
take a
back
vote?
on- If I could, to go back on your comments, you're not the only one who's asked that, and it's got me thinking over the last few days about developing a possible process going forward for the end of the terms going forward. So obviously for next time, which will be
Correct.
2027. So maybe sometime in the fall of 26, going through some sort of process, I think, has merit. So what I will likely do is probably think about that further and identify a clearer process in the future.
In vetting, yes, I think that would be helpful
Right.
to the board and to us. Thank you. Okay, at this point, I guess I turn over the meeting back to you.
No, you need to conduct a vote.
Oh, we need to conduct a vote.
Ask Brad to leave the room.
We can, I'm not
You
leaving because
can't
I'm
vote.
voting.
You can't,
Yeah, I'm
can you,
I
voting.
ain't going
I
nowhere.
can vote, right?
can you vote?
You're giving direction to the trustees. So
Yeah.
Yeah, there doesn't have to be a vote. You just need to direct them as to how you want it to vote.
And it's an open meeting on film, so
Okay.
leaving the room doesn't,
So can I have a motion
What?
for putting forth a nomination for the GRP representative? Does anyone have a
You
motion?
need a motion?
I think so, because then we have to take a
You
vote.
don't have to. You can. I mean, it's up to the discretion of the board. If you want to handle it by motion and vote, you can do it that way. If you want to just give your direction to your trustee who you support, you can do it that way. I mean, all of this is advisory. I mean, your trustee and all the trustees are not bound by the direction that they get. Of course, if they go against the wishes of their board, then the board can come back the next month and change it to trustee.
Ex-trustee, yeah.
That's what you want to avoid. So that's why you have these discussions, but you're not legally required to take a motion on
Okay,
the item. You can give your direction as directors to your trustee as to how you would like for him to vote.
any direction? Because I'm hearing two sides.
Well, there's two sides.
Two sides or just trustee vote your conscience.
To get it done, I'll nominate Kim Wright as employee of the WWA.
I'll support Brad.
I'll nominate Brad to vote.
So we need to vote for Miss Wright.
I know, because we just need to
Give direction.
give direction.
it's cleaner to have a vote.
Cleaner to have vote.
Up to y'all.
Well, then I need a motion.
Oh, you have two nominations.
2 nominations.
Call for a question? I don't know.
All those in favor?
You're not
You
gonna.
call the question, Marta. Call it. All in favor?
All in favor of Brad being nominated, say aye.
Of who?
Aye.
Was it Brad?
And all those in favor of Kim, right?
Oh, it's green light. I vote yes.
So we have 4 for Brad and 1 for Ken.
Very good.
Thank you. So I think we've given direction.
Thank you, Marta. Now you'll hand the meeting back to me and I'll,
We'll hand the meeting back to you.
okay. And I'll hand the meeting over to Brian, which I don't think you have anything.
Nothing today. The session is looming, but has not kicked off, so nothing to report today.
I saw like a record number of bills have been introduced.
Well, maybe pre-introduced.
Pre-introduced, yes, yes.
They can't be formally introduced until the beginning of the session in January, but it's gonna be a mess. Well, because on the House side, you're gonna have a fight over who
The
the
speaker.
speaker is, and the speaker determines who all the committee chairs are and populates the committees. So none of the machinery or the plumbing of the House is gonna get, activated until that's resolved, which is gonna push back the timing of the bill. So it's gonna be a mad dash to try to get stuff passed on the House side. Can't wait.
It'll be interesting to see what
Yep.
Mr. Perry does. He may even have something to do with Montgomery County.
That's all I have.
Yeah, Eric, go ahead.
Yep, Jim, all right, thank you so much. Good evening. Wanted to update you on a few things. For Water Renewal of the Woodlands, the Community Work Group. Its first meeting has been identified and invites have gone out to those members of the committee, and that is, or the group. That'll be on December 2nd at 11:30 at the township. So, yep, you should have received the invite. And so that'll be the kickoff meeting, and then we'll proceed from there on where to go.
I wanted to know what time.
11:30 to 1
11:30.
Mhm.
Okay.
at the township. Just because they have a bigger room than we do. We just don't have a big enough room here.
Thank you.
Want to let you know, I did attend the Texas Water Conservation Association Conference a few weeks ago in San Antonio. That was pretty worthwhile. Wanted to update you that earlier this year, we had mentioned that we would be working on a capital improvement plan / projects plan for next year to be talked about through the budget cycle. And one of the concerns I mentioned to you all was the condition of the ditches and ditch piping. And so the trustees, as part of the budget a couple months ago, approved budget to purchase a UTV to facilitate running the ditches a little more efficiently. The mowing contractor that we use to mow the 1,000 acres of ditches across the Woodlands completed their work last year or last week or the week before. So we are looking to run the ditches to do ditch assessment, ditch pipe assessment starting next week. We're hopeful that we'll be able to run everything and have everything done by the end of the year. And then we'll use that data, collate that also with water and sewer, and start building the capital improvement plan / project plan that ideally, my expectation will be that we'll present that as part of the budget cycle next year. And then you'll be able to utilize in kind of doing some long range planning on what we're facing in terms of any infrastructure needs.
Do the ditches go up to the green belt or through the green belt?
It just depends. It depends on where it is. It's a little different in different areas. So that's an update on that. I have some really good news. If you recall in your budget, for the last 2 years, it was forwarded into this budget. This year, there was a line item for large ditch repair of $750,000. Remember that line item? Well, that project just bid. And the bid amount, now the 750 was engineering, construction, the whole works. But the cost estimate or the bid, we received 2 bids. It is in your packet. The low bid was $218,400. So you're a 90% participant. And to update everybody on kind of where this is, it's a drop structure in a ditch. So the ditch goes, and instead of speeding it up really fast, which erodes the ditch, you have these drop structures that it drops straight down and then it can continue at a slower pace. That failed. And it was a concrete structure that was undermined and completely failed. And so the initial cost estimate on that with engineering contingencies, et cetera, 2 years ago or so, was about $750,000, and it was a conservative estimate. We had great bids of 218.4, plus engineering, and to finish out engineering and oversight during construction, we're probably going to come in at somewhere near half, or just over maybe 60% of the original estimate. So great news. Just to give you a reminder of where that is, you see Mud 7 there, kind of the southwest sharp tip of Mud 7.
At the top.
No, at the bottom. Right, no, right at the tip, right there. So coming off of that roughly is where there's a little side channel, yep, that ties into the main channel. You are a 90% share of the project based on the flow that's coming from you, and then that little yellow blob right to the side of you, that's Mud 60's 10% share essentially based on flow. So good news is it came well under budget. We have bids. We have been given a recommendation of award from the engineer to award the project to King Construction. I've actually worked with them a number of times throughout my career. Great contractor. I have no issue accepting the recommendation award from the engineer. So hopefully we will get rolling on that project very soon.
How can there be such a disparity?
Mainly because of the unknowns at the beginning. The engineer wanted to be relatively conservative when budgeting because they really didn't know what they were going to get themselves into. And there was some value engineering that was done during the design to not go back with this big, huge monolithic concrete drop structure, which was in this market is extremely expensive. There's other alternatives that are just as workable. And so that's essentially what they ended up going with. So we believe that it is a viable solution and it cut significant costs, and you're going to reap the benefit of that.
Well,
90% of it at least.
it works.
So great news. Last thing I had was to kick it over to John for the communication report.
Good evening. Page 51 starts your communications report. Couple updates on infrastructural renewal communications to start off there. So yeah, the community working group will meet on December 2nd. That is the first meeting of that advisory group. We have survey results for you. We've talked about that in the past where a community survey was performed by Holloway. The full results are available for you on the Google Drive, and then some high-level results for you if you don't want to sift through that entire document. And again, you can find that on the Google Drive. And then within the next month, we expect that project cut sheets will be uploaded to that renewal website. Those are one-pagers that go into detail about individual projects or bundled projects of similar nature, talking about budgeting, project description, timelines, and so forth. So that should be coming here soon. I had a request from a director last month to bring forward some website visitation stats. And so you have those there at the bottom of 51. Using page views as the metric. Well, if we go back to, before the strategic plan was implemented in 23, the previous 5-year average, we're getting about 22,000 page views a month on our website. Since we've enacted the strategic plan and the MUDs have put a lot more emphasis on communications in the last couple of years, we've seen a nice return on that investment. So since enactment of the strategic plan began in 2023, we're averaging 38,000 plus page views a month. So that's about a 75% increase. And we're continuing to trend upwards. So 2024 alone, we're at 44,000. And you can see the top 25 individual months are ranked there on the right. And just about all of those are from the last 2 years. So that's very encouraging. What we do in most of our communications is push to the website. So this is a really nice gauge of overall performance. It's not the sole gauge. We have other ways to do that as well. Social media reach, community surveys that we perform, engagement in our programs and services. But this again does give us a nice barometer. So that's encouraging.
How many hookups are there? How many households?
34,000,
34,000?
commercial and residential.
Or we're
Combined, there's 32 and 2.
meeting,
There's all.
I'm sorry.
we're likely getting to the how everybody. I mean.
I don't know that we're getting to everybody, but we're trying and we're getting to more and more.
Household, right? Maybe. By the numbers.
I can't say that, but we're getting to more.
Yeah, just in looking at the signups for Water Smart, when I started, we were at 19%, we're at over 70% now. Signups for Water Smart. So they're not necessarily all getting the Water Weekly or the emails, but that we're making that a requirement now for new signups that they will need to provide an email address at least. And so we're gaining more and more, and our goal is to get as as many as we possibly can. Because it's for those that haven't signed up or haven't signed up for newsletters or anything like that, they're just hurting themselves, not getting the information. And we recognize that some people like things in an email, some people like seeing it on social medias, some people like seeing it in print. So we're trying to hit all the different, outlets that we possibly can to hit as many people as we can. Best we can.
Yeah, you really need a shotgun approach these days, as we all know. We all get our information different ways. Okay, examples of current marketing materials there in the next couple pages. If you haven't seen community impact, we did get the front page, latest edition, which dropped on Friday. That is on infrastructure renewal, and we'll push that out through email and social media as well, and make sure folks are seeing that.
Who's responsible for the content of that? Was that reviewed by Eric or?
Jessica Short was the writer, the reporter, and we did communicate information to her to help fill in that article. Eric provided a number of responses.
It was more of a question, just answering questions. We don't see what they end up writing.
Yeah.
Until it comes out.
What do you think of?
I thought it was pretty well written. I mean, I don't think they extended too much on anything. Again, when talking about infrastructure, obviously there's two big projects that are in everybody's mind. We try to stay away from that as far as any specifics because we don't know specifics. Both those projects are under evaluation right now, so we stay away from that until we know. Once we know something, and once the trustees and boards, get deeper into decisions on that, then we can communicate that to the public and educate the public on things. But one of the things that I am very focused on right now that I think that all of the directors need to celebrate is that you are already doing water renewal. You're doing renewal projects every day, but you're not telling the community about it. And so this is an opportunity for us to celebrate to the community all the various good things that you are doing right now. All those projects that are on that sheet in STRA, as well as some things that WWA are doing, they're already funded projects, and you were able to do those without raising your rates to the community. That needs to be celebrated and communicated to the community. So that's really what I'm interested in right now.
Maybe we can take that bent in some of our future communications.
Make that what?
Just that focus and make that a focus of, look what we're doing, look what we've done.
100%.
Yeah, we're actually building what we're calling cut sheets right now on all those projects. So that's actually ongoing behind the scenes right now. And then that will end up being put onto the website and then shared with folks on the active current projects that are currently going on and currently funded.
I guess my only feedback was there's a statement that says most infrastructure has a life expectancy of 25 to 50 years. And I think our experience with the AC pipeline has shown that, the national standard or national agency believe in many cases, AC pipe has a life extension beyond 75 years.
That's not referring to any specific infrastructure.
This is most infrastructure.
Doesn't say AC pipe, Brad.
No, I know, but
Don't read it again.
I think you're misleading the community to say after 50 years, things need to be replaced.
What you want to read into it. That it doesn't say anything about AC pipe being considered.
Most infrastructure.
Doesn't say AC.
Not all,
No.
could exclude AC.
That is a factual statement in the water industry.
You know, what would make me happy is to believe that more than 20 people read that paragraph.
Hopefully.
All right.
Last thing, and I'll leave you be here. I got, just want to make sure you're aware of the upcoming water bill. Well, the current one is on renewal, and then the upcoming one for November's bill. It's a dual message about turning off your sprinkler systems to save water and money, and then also reminding folks about winter sewer averaging. So that kicks in December 1 and the end of February. So we will be pushing out a lot on winter sewer averaging, help folks save money year round. And then a couple things on the outreach calendar, a couple more events to wind up the season. We'll be at Sterling Road VA Festival on December 8th. And then we anticipate being a regular participant at the Grogan's Mill Farmers Market going forward, probably trying to get out there once a month. Just get out in the community as much as we can.
That was timely. The message that was, I don't know if it was Facebook or email about the fact that you establish your wastewater rate based on the winter usage. And if you water your grass, you're gonna pay more for sewer, so turn it off come about, well, normally September.
Yeah.
Right now, we're still in San Augustine growing season. But if you put it, went 3 or 4 months, just turn it off, you can greatly affect your wastewater rate for the next year.
That's right.
And
Healthier
you
for
save
your lawn.
water and you
And your lawn's open.
serve.
Hopefully the growing season ends tomorrow night.
When we wake up, is it tomorrow night or tonight? Tomorrow. Some
It'll be
point.
freezing.
Okay, let's move on. Thanks so much. Okay, so it takes us to the trustee report, which is in the package. You guys can read that. The most important stuff, I think we already talked about. If, the flood planning group, you might read that. We covered the wastewater treatment facility renewal update and decision matrix. We talked about the GRP review committee, using more background in the public education committee, which Marta's going to represent us in the December 2nd meeting. So with that, I'll move on. Any closed items? Okay. So I think that takes us to the end of our meeting. Anything new for next month rather? So we have agreed, we will meet in December. We
Sure.
will work on the
Matrix.
matrix. Well, Chris is gone. Since there's not most MUDs may not be meeting, do we want to forego the normal monthly
Schedule?
river authority schedule? Just do a special purpose meeting?
Do we need to do finance stuff?
I don't know if we can get together for that.
We just have to post it, I guess.
Yeah, we did
Like
post
any
it.
other
It's a normal meeting. We just
I think it'd
put the
be
agenda.
good to do.
Oh, you mean reduce
Make it-
the agenda just to the matrix work?
That's basically, y'all do a single item. It's almost like a workshop.
Yeah, so we could do a workshop meeting with one item. We could forego their report. We could forego all of the consent stuff. Even though there's financials, we can go another month. So that's not an issue for us.
I'm not sure how to interpret the one about future items on the agenda and the one about, like, I would like to go to and have the district pay for my attendance at the AWBD meeting, the next one.
That's,
So, I mean, I know it's kind of a cover statement, but I don't want to just assume I'm blessed.
no,
That's
that's
just on item 8. is
item
it's
8
in there.
consent.
So, I mean, it covers that without
Yeah.
Yeah.
me
And
saying,
we'll encourage any director
You're
that's.
talking about the Austin meeting,
I don't have to ask.
When
you.
is that meeting?
24th, 25th, I think.
January,
January, I think you're right. Yes.
Friday and Saturday.
That's a weekend. It's a Friday, Saturday in Austin.
At one time, my job required me to go to every one of them twice a year for almost 25 years. And this will be my first since I retired, so.
Welcome back. Okay, any other items for agenda for next month? So we'll do that. Are we ready to close?
Sure.